Customary Algebra Lesson 5-5, using customary units of measure. One of the things we're going to do today is use dimensional analysis. That is the process of analyzing units to decide which conversion factors to use. Remember when we converted milligrams to grams and kilograms to grams, or milliliters to kiloliters, and we just had to move the decimal point, and I said I much preferred the metric system because all we have to do is move the decimal point because we're multiplying or dividing by the power of 10. Well, today you'll understand why the metric system is so much easier than the customary system. Because the customary system has interesting numbers to figure out conversions. It's annoying, but we still use it, so we have to be very familiar with it. Most of you are fairly familiar with the customary system of measurements, unless you're an international student. If you're an international student, you're probably much more familiar with the metric system because worldwide the metric system is more widely used. The only places that continue to use the customary system are here in the United States and parts of Britain or England. So, the length. For length, we have several different units of measure. We have the inch. An inch is approximately from your knuckle of your thumb to the end of your thumbnail. Okay, that's about an inch long. We have the foot, which used to be the length of the king's foot, which meant every time you got a new king, the foot changed length. But it's a foot, which is 12 inches. We have the yard, which is slightly less than a meter, and we have the mile, which is slightly more than a kilometer. The equivalence is there are 12 inches in a foot, there are 3 feet in 1 yard, there are 5,280 feet a mile, or 1,760 yards to a mile. I have all these memorized because I've used them so often in my entire life. Go up to the average person, they would have no idea what these are, they would have to look them up. For capacity, capacity is like a drinking glass, a bottle of water, how much your bowl of soup will hold. Okay? That's capacity. We use the fluid ounce. Okay? We use the cup, the pint, the quart, and the gallon. There are 8 fluid ounces in a cup. There are 2 cups in 1 pint. There are 2 pints in 1 quart. And there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon. We still do a lot of things using the customary system. We buy our gas in gallons. We buy our milk in quarts and gallons. However, we buy soda pop in liters and 2 liters. We buy water most of the time in liters and 2 liters. And we're getting to the point now where we're beginning to buy ice cream in liters instead of quarts and pints. For weight, we have the ounce, the pound, and the ton. Okay, there are 16 ounces to a pound, and there are 2,000 pounds to a ton. The more we work with these customary units of measure, the better you will get at them. Okay, so we're going to use an appropriate unit of measure. We're going to explain our choice, much like when we did it with the metric system. The weight of a hummingbird. Well, if you know what a hummingbird is a very small bird. Wings flutter super, super fast. In fact, you can't even see them when they're moving, so they're moving so fast. But it's not a very large bird. Since it isn't a very large bird, I'm going to use ounces. Okay, so I'm going to use ounces. Since the hummingbird is small, it's a very small bird. Okay. Length of a soccer field. Well, the soccer field is slightly bigger than a football field. We already know a football field is 100 yards long. You just have to hope you know it's 100 yards long. So the length of the soccer field should be done in yards. Okay. Because it's too long to measure in inches or feet, and too short to measure in miles. Okay. Too long for inches or feet. And too short for miles. The capacity of an eyedropper. Eyedropper is very, very small. You know, smaller than, you know, like think of putting eye drops in your eye. You only can put one drop at a time. So we're looking here at fluid ounces. Because it's a small amount of liquid. convert between one unit or another in the customary system. It's much more difficult than the metric system. In the metric system, we just had to move the decimal point. In the customary system, we must use conventional analysis. And no matter how many times I try to tell people not to try to take shortcuts, they always try to take shortcuts, and then they can't figure out why they can't get the answers right. You will continue to use dimensional analysis in Algebra 1. So if you learn it now in pre-algebra, it will make it much easier for you when you do it in Algebra 1, and you have to start converting maybe feet per second to miles per hour. All right, so convert 68 fluid ounces to cups. Well, the first thing we have to do, because I always tell people, write it as a fraction, 68 fluid ounces over 1. And we need to convert it to cups, so we need to know how to do that. And you can't always do it in one conversion. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can. Well, there are 8 ounces in a cup. So 8 fluid ounces in a cup means we want the fluid ounces to cancel out because we want the cups to be what's left because that's what we're looking for. So when we set up our fraction, we are either going to put 8 fluid ounces on the top of the fraction or we're going to put it on the bottom of the fraction. We choose to put it on the bottom of the fraction because if we put it on the top of the fraction, our 8 fluid ounces won't cancel out. We put 1 cup on the top and the 8 fluid ounces on the bottom because now my fluid ounces cancel. And I have 68 over 8. Now I just need to divide. Okay? I know that 68 over 8 can reduce. I know that 2 will go into both of those, but I also believe 4 will go into both of those. 4 will go into 8 twice, and 4 will go into 68 17 times. So I now have 17 over 2, 17 cups over 2. So that's going to be 2 goes into 17 8 times, 8.5 cups. So 68 fluid ounces is 8.5 cups. If I'm going to convert 14 ounces to pounds, 14 ounces over 1, and I know there are 16 ounces to a pound, and if I want my ounces to cancel out, I need my ounces on the bottom, so 16 ounces is on the bottom, 1 pound is on the top. My ounces cancel out here, and I have 14 over 16, which I can make 14 pounds over 16, which I can now reduce. 14 over 16 reduces to 7/8. So this becomes 7/8 of a pound. And don't ask me why the abbreviation for pound is LB. I'm sure there's a reason, I've just never looked it up to figure it out. All right, let's look at another one. 14 inches to a foot. If I want to figure out how many feet 14 inches are, I will figure this out by simply looking at things. Okay, 14 inches is how many feet? So I have 14 inches over 1, and I know that there are 12 inches to a foot, and I know to get the inches to cancel out, 12 inches needs to go on the bottom, and 1 foot has to go on the top, because if I put it the other way around, my inches will cancel out, so these cancel. So I have 14 over 12. Both of those are reducible by 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So this is 1 1/6 feet. 3.5 yards. I'm going to try to change that to be feet. Well, first I'm going to take 3.5 and change it into an improper fraction. So that would be 7/2 yards. And I need to change it to feet. And I know there are 3 feet to every yard. So in this case, 3 feet goes on the top, 1 yard goes on the bottom because I need the yards to cancel out. The yards cancel out here. So I have 3 times 7 is 21 over 2, which happens to be 10.5 feet. The more you do these problems, the better you get at them. But you actually have to practice them quite a bit to get pretty good at them. Dimensional analysis just requires you to be careful and systematic. All right, let's take a look at this. Fred's Fruit Stand sells homemade lemonade in 6 half-pint bottles for $1.99. Jill's fruit stand sells homemade lemonade in 3.5 quart containers for the same price. So, at which stand you get more lemonade for your money? So if I want to do this, I either need to change pints to quarts or quarts to pints. It doesn't really matter. I'm thinking it's probably a little bit easier to change my quarts into pints. Okay? So I'm going to use a conversion factor that changes quarts to pints. So I have 3.5 quarts, and I'm going to change that to pints. So first of all, 3.5 is 7 halves, so 7 quarts over 2. And there are 2 pints to every quart, so I'm going to multiply 2 pints for every 1 quart. My quarts now cancel out. My 2's have now canceled out, so I end up with 7 pints. Okay? So I get 7 pints is 3.5 quarts. So Jill's fruit stand, you get 7 pints for $1.99. Fred's fruit stand, you get 6.5 pints for $1.99. Okay, 6.5 pint bottles for $1.99. So which one is the better deal? Since 7 pints is bigger than 6.5 pints. Okay, you're gonna make more. You're gonna get more juice for your money at Jill's fruit stand. Since 3.5 quarts is 7 pints, and he sells 6.5 pint bottles. Okay. So your money is best served at Jill's. Okay. And 7 is greater than 6.5. You get more money, you get more juice for your dollar at Jill's fruit stand.